How are you?
Good to see you.
Hey, Anna.
Hi, John.
How and when you got into the industry? How long you've been a part of Convergint?
So I've been with Convergint past CSG. We were acquisition for almost 8 years now. Before that, I lived in Europe for 7 years.
Very cool.
So I was over there, and when I decided to come back, my old boss was Dino, and Dino owned CSG. Not something I ever thought I would be doing.
You know, we're here to talk about customer service, and I know you're passionate about it. You know, what I'm really interested in is what got you into not just Convergint, but the customer service industry.
For me, on the sales side, the customer service portion of that and the relationship portion was always what's most important. And with Convergint, I can do that. Even though I was with a smaller company before coming with Convergint, the idea that every person in the company has some sort of integral role of providing that customer service is the same. And so now I just have a bigger support team that can back me up.
You might be the point person for that particular relationship, but it's really a team that delivers on a consistent basis.
Well, if it's just about me, then it begins and ends with me, and then what happens? And so that's not the best way to do it. They need to understand that the whole Convergint is behind them.
How has your role changed over the course of the last couple of years with COVID? And you know, every customer's needs a little bit different in terms of their comfort level. So how have you had to adjust in order to maintain that same level of quality and service?
Face-to-face meetings are always great because you really, have a connection with somebody. And so you have to work a little bit harder to make sure that you have that connection when you're doing Zoom or Teams or any of those things. So one is I just had to make sure to increase the number of times that I'm actually seeing somebody. So with some of my higher level customers like Disney or the airport, where we were doing quarterly business reviews, I've upped it to monthly business reviews. And they're still virtual, but still making sure that we have that connection. But there's another side to that is that, you're not having the face-to-face, but, in the beginning of it, you're now in somebody's living room. And so there's this vulnerability that has happened because of COVID that has made the relationships a little bit more comfortable. And so there has been a better side, because when you see somebody's dog barking in the background or something like that, it creates an ease. And so those relationships are able to become a little bit more personal. And at the end of the day, that's kind of how I want it to be. I want to be a trusted advisor. And when you're a trusted advisor, that you're part of that, decision-making process. And that's the end goal. And so when you have that personal relationship, then it's easier to do that.
So you kind of changed the rules of the game to make sure that you stayed more visible, not less visible, regardless of whether it was in person or Teams. You had more connection with the customer during this period of time.
I mean, you have to, because if you fade into the background, somebody else is going to come in. You've been around for a while. How do you think things have changed?
Listen, I think customers are becoming more complex, right? They have more needs, as you said before, and I think that forces us as an organization to continue to adapt and evolve as a business. We're going to finish up our 21st year, and we've had a lot of success along the way. I think the reason why we've had success is we've maintained our foundational principles that Dan and Greg set, from our culture to our values and beliefs, but we've also continued to evolve as the industries have evolved and as our customer needs have evolved. And I think the key is, right, this is a people, colleague-centric business. So the more we keep investing in great colleagues, hiring the right types of colleagues that not only fit our culture, but fit our ability to grow and adapt with our customers, I think that's the most important attribute I could say that Convergint has had over the last 20 plus years. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have significant competitive advantage. We're never satisfied with where we were. We're kind of keeping an eye on the next 20 years, not the past 20 years. I think we're starting to build a bigger service sales force. So we've hired 28, 30 service sales executives over the course of the last year and a half. What advice would you give them, knowing what you know today and all the success that you've had? They're just getting started. Where would you have them focus?
Relentless customer service. I mean, that's the key. When service sales is different than install sales, because install sales, you can do your thing and it's a big job, and then you go on to the next, and you can go on to the next customer. With service sales, the relationships do matter, and the customer service aspect of it does matter. And not that it doesn't matter in the other, but it really does. So I think that my any input that I would say is just be relentless, being an advocate for your customer. Because I think where people go wrong is they think that if you make good business decisions for Convergint, that you can't be your customer's best advocate. And that is not true.